The Ohio Players were a group who emerged as one of the more entertaining groups of 1974, especially with this song called Skin Tight. The Ohio Players!
The airwaves in the 1970s were alive with the sound of revolution. It was a decade of innovation, expansion, and the birth of legendary radio stations that left a big mark on the American cultural landscape. Yet, as influential as some of them were, many of these iconic stations vanished. So today we will show you 13 radio stations from the 70s that disappeared.
50,000 watt.
AM stereo, KDAY, Santa Monica,
Los Angeles.
Kicking things off with KDAY 1580 AM, Los Angeles, California. KDAY was pioneering in its embrace of emerging genres, becoming one of the first stations in the nation to heavily feature hip-hop in its rotation. In the late 70s, it was known for its eclectic mix, bridging the gap between funk, soul, and the nascent rap scene. However, as the 80s progressed, KDAY struggled to maintain its identity amid changing musical and business landscapes, leading to its closure. Its legacy, though, lives on as a precursor to the modern urban contemporary format, celebrating the station's role in promoting diverse sounds.
WDAI 94.7 FM, Chicago's best rock, like you've never heard it before.
WDAI 94.7 FM, Chicago, Illinois. WDAI was at the forefront of the disco craze in Chicago, capturing the city's vibrant nightlife and the burgeoning disco movement. It provided a soundtrack for the era's discotheques and roller skating rinks until the infamous Disco Demolition Night in 1979. This event, emblematic of the backlash against disco, marked a turning point for WDAI. The station shifted formats in response to changing tastes, moving away from disco to embrace rock, thus ending its reign as Chicago's disco king.
WWRL AM and WWPR FM HD3 New York.
WWRL 1600 AM New York. WWRL was a soul and R&B powerhouse in New York City, reflecting the rich musical tapestry of the city's diverse communities. Throughout the 70s, it was a key player in the Motown, funk, and soul scenes, featuring iconic DJs who were celebrities in their own right. As the 80s dawned, WWRL faced stiff competition from FM stations and changing music preferences, eventually leading to a format change and the end of its era as a soul station. If you are enjoying this video, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. Also, what radio stations did you used to listen to? Let us know in the comments.
KCBS AM, KFRC FM, and HD1, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, and Odyssey Station.
KMPX 106.9 FM, San Francisco, California. KMPX holds a special place in radio history as one of the first stations to adopt a free-form rock format, profoundly influencing the San Francisco music scene. It was a hub for the counterculture movement, broadcasting psychedelic rock, folk, and blues to a generation of listeners seeking alternatives to mainstream pop. Internal disputes and financial issues led to its demise in the late 70s. But KMPX's experimental approach to radio programming would inspire FM stations nationwide. WJBK 1500 AM, Detroit, Michigan. WJBK was Detroit's go-to station for the Motown sound, serving as the city's musical pulse. It was where listeners tuned in to catch the latest hits and hear interviews with Motown legends, getting a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the lives of their favorite artists. As Motown stars rose to international fame, WJBK proudly featured their music, playing a key role in popularizing the genre beyond Detroit's borders. However, the station's shift away from music programming in the late 70s, transitioning to talk and news formats, marked the end of its era as a beacon of the Motown sound. This pivot reflected the changing dynamics of radio and music consumption, closing a chapter on WJBK's contribution to the city's musical heritage.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to The Sam Riddle Show from the Much More Music Station.
KJ Los Angeles.
It's 9:29 in Los Angeles.
KHJ 9:30 AM, Los Angeles, California. KHJ was legendary for its Boss radio format, which revolutionized AM broadcasting with its tight playlists, charismatic DJs, and rapid-fire jingles. Throughout the 70s, it was a powerhouse for pop, rock, and soul, shaping Los Angeles' musical tastes. The rise of FM stereo broadcasting and shifts in listener preferences saw KHJ's influence wane, leading to a format change and the end of its boss radio era.
North America's most powerful radio station, 77 WABC, New York. News, weather, and traffic now.
WABC770 AM New York. WABC was the quintessential top 40 AM station, dominating the New York airwaves with a mix of pop, rock, and soul. It was famed for its influential DJs, who were household names, and its ability to make or break records. The transition to talk radio in the early 80s marked the end of WABC's musical legacy as it adapted to the changing radio landscape.
WXRT.
WXRT 93.1 FM, Chicago, Illinois. Before its evolution into a modern rock staple, WXRT began the 70s with a freeform format, exploring deep tracks across genres, from progressive rock to jazz fusion. This eclectic approach garnered a devoted following among Chicago's music aficionados. Financial pressures in the competitive FM market prompted a shift towards a more commercial rock format, transforming WXRT's identity, but ensuring its survival.
WCOZ 94.5 FM. It's the best show in Boston.
WCOZ 94.5 FM, Boston, Massachusetts. In the mid to late 70s, WCOZ emerged as a beacon for rock enthusiasts in Boston, embracing the harder edges of the genre with a mix of album cuts and classic tracks. Its kick-ass rock and roll tagline was more than a slogan. It was a mission statement that defined its approach and appeal. As the 80s approached, WCOZ found itself in a fierce rivalry with other FM rock stations, leading to a dramatic format change to top 40 in an effort to capture a broader audience. This shift marked the end of its rock-dominated era, leaving behind a legacy of passionate, if not always commercially successful, radio programming.
1360 WSAI.
WSAI 1360 AM, Cincinnati, Ohio. WSAI was a powerhouse of pop and rock and roll in the 60s, but by the 70s it began to experiment with different formats, including country music, before settling on a talk radio format. The station's willingness to evolve reflected the changing landscape of American radio, but it also meant the end of its influence as a music station. While WSAI's musical legacy faded, its adaptive approach highlighted the shifting dynamics of radio broadcasting in response to listeners' evolving preferences.
WIBG FM in Philadelphia now separates programming until 1 a.m.
WIBG 990 AM, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. WIBG, WIBG was a cornerstone of the Philadelphia music scene, boasting a top 40 format that blended rock, soul, and pop hits. Through the 60s and into the 70s, it was the soundtrack of the city's youth, featuring legendary DJs who became local celebrities. As FM radio gained prominence and listener habits shifted, WIBG struggled to maintain its audience, leading to a switch to a religious format in the late 70s. This change ended its reign as a music station, but its impact on Philadelphia's music lovers endures in memories.
This is colorful KQV, audio 14.
KQV 1410 AM, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. KQV thrived as a top 40 station, capturing the energy and excitement of the pop music scene. Its strong signal and lively DJs made it a favorite among Pittsburgh's teen and young adult listeners. However, the rise of FM radio and changes in the music industry's dynamics prompted KQV to transition to an all-news format by the end of the 70s. This shift reflected broader trends in AM radio, as stations searched for new ways to remain relevant in a rapidly changing media environment. KFRC, 610 AM, San Francisco, California. KFRC was an institution in the San Francisco Bay Area, celebrated for its dynamic top 40 format that featured a mix of rock, pop, and R&B hits. With its catchy jingles, charismatic DJs, and community engagement, KFRC was more than a radio station. It was a cultural hub. The transition to a news talk format in the early 80s marked the end of an era for KFRC as a music station. While it adapted to new broadcasting trends, the change signaled the passing of a time when AM radio was the epicenter of youth culture and music discovery. These 13 radio stations from the 70s played a pivotal role in shaping America's musical landscape, introducing generations to new sounds, fostering local talent, and creating communities of listeners bound by their love for music. Their disappearance marks a significant transformation in broadcasting and music consumption, but the legacy of these stations lives on. They remind us of a time when radio was not just a medium, but a movement, capable of bringing about cultural shifts and connecting people in ways that transcended the airwaves.